classification.
They won't chase him because he's too far behind. As Paul has said, they are continuing their private battle, the race for the yellow jersey behind. Moncoutier has a chance here to bridge.
They've only just, the main field have only just begun the climb, or the measured part of the climb. It just said 13 kilometers to go to the finish. This is the back of the group. Floyd Landis, his job done for the day. These men have almost had a half day off, if you like. They haven't had to do all that much pacemaking for Lance Armstrong, because most of the work on the front end of the peloton today has been done by a different team. They are all sitting up. Number 2, Roberto Heras. He's had a hard time throughout the mountain. Take this, keep yourself topped up with energy, because the Tour de France is not over.
But this is not the US Postal team we've known at this stage of a Tour de France. They've been around Lance. Remember, we're on the last climb today now. The 13 kilometers or 7 miles climb of the Col de Peyresourde takes us up to 1,560 meters, and in feet that is 5,100 feet. It is a massive climb, this, a steady gradient of 7%, and it is 13 kilometers if we're talking in modern times. This is an amazing climb now, and Armstrong is again under pressure, but he is still there, Paul. He has moved into 4th place behind Alexander Vinokourov, and the other man is still there. Jan Ullrich, Iban Mayo, Zubeldia, they're all there.
But look at that. Your Ullrich does not have that many teammates left either. This is sad to see. Roberto Heras has done a lot of work for Lance Armstrong. The big men who have surrounded him in all the critical moments are right now trailing at the back end of the pack. But Chechu Rubiera, Phil, is still there in 4th position, looking after Mr. Lance Armstrong.
Despite his ride yesterday.
Alexander Vinokourov is looking pretty comfortable too. But what has happened today is Team Bianchi have decimated their own team. This may well be why Armstrong was sitting so far back, because now Ullrich won't have any teammates left either.
They're all on self-destruct. There's no doubt about that, because we have the huge day in the Pyrenees tomorrow. We expected a calm, cool ride today because of what is to come tomorrow. And I must say that Bettini has got his ride. He's now waiting to see who's coming by. No more effort here. Also, Michael Rogers just ahead of him. As they move forward the cars, then you can reckon that the Ullrich-Armstrong Express is about to come through in the fast lane.
Coming back there too, George Hincapie. If today Richard Virenque has sealed his win in the King of the Mountains competition, he really has to do a very good thank you to Michael Rogers and of course Paolo Bettini, because they were in the original breakaway.
This is the group here. That'll be Bocharov. I think that was Beltran actually that brought him back. He was way up the road all day, and he's now back in the field as well. They're all splintering a lot back there, but you know, I have a feeling that Armstrong is having a good day, and he's playing a special card here. He has suddenly become the joker in the pack. We're going to know the answer very soon now, because very soon only 2 riders are going to go for it, Armstrong and Ullrich. 20 kilometers to go. We still have about 7 kilometers to climb on the Col de Portillon. Col de Peyresourde. We'll take another break. Rejoin us on OLN.
The viewers don't like the way you say Tour de France.
Don't you mean Tour de France?
No. Tour de France.
Tour de France. Tour de France. Tour de France.
We're now looking at a battle here on the Col du Peyresourde, and this is Francis Moreau here now. This is a very select, was the peloton, but now it is thinned out dramatically. Francis Moreau,
Christophe Moreau.
I keep thinking of Francis. He's retired now.
And a gold medalist, let's not forget, at the Atlanta
Indeed,
Olympics. A very good bike rider.
Ullrich, Armstrong, Mayo. They are now going to go mano a mano up this mountain.
Well, this is what we expected, the big showdown on the slopes of the Col de Peyresourde. A 13-kilometer climb with an average gradient of 7.8%. Moreau is riding superbly today. He's the best Frenchman in the overall classification, but he's actually maybe losing that position today to Richard Virenque, who is well up the road at the moment by around about 9 minutes. The head of the race, Phil, are around about 6 minutes in front of the yellow jersey group. The yellow jersey group must really be turning up the gas.
Well, everybody's throwing in their 10 pennyworth into the ring. I would never have suggested Moreau to attack on a climb like this.
Well, Moreau wants to try and reduce the advantage that Richard Virenque has. He starts the day in 10th place and best Frenchman, and the French very often ride for that position, the best Frenchman in the race, and that's what he's thinking about. Ulrich looks calm, but I tell you what, the man in the yellow jersey is dancing around on those pedals, following every wheel that comes fairly close to the front of the bunch. I think he's back.
Well, we're going to find out, Paul, because Moreau is trying another attack here. He's got the gap this time. He'll keep the pressure on. Ulrich has not responded to Christophe Moreau because he's 9 minutes behind, even though he is riding in the top 10 in the Tour de France, and he is the best French rider. That's what perhaps he's thinking of. Ulrich is so much more concerned. And watch out on the inside. I think that is possibly Iban Mayo, who has now launched an attack. Now, this is another different thing because Mayo is 6th overall and 5 minutes behind. He could take that on this climb, and still no reaction from Ulrich nor Armstrong.
Well, Iban Mayo is a great bike rider who lost a bit of time in the individual time trial, but he is still well up in the overall classification in 6th place. There's a reaction coming behind there from Christophe Moreau, but he's having a hard time just staying with the accelerations of these riders from the Basque team, Euskaltel-Euskadi.
Well, you see the difference between a pure climber and a man who thinks he can climb, because this is a pure climber who's attacked now. Here comes the 1-2. Oh, sorry, this is a look back at the attack. Now this is the attack of Mayo, and look over his shoulder from Vinokourov straight at the eyes of Armstrong to see if there was a reaction. There wasn't. Christophe Moreau and a Zubeldia is coming up. It might be Lyseca, this. They've got long thin legs together, these two, but that could well be Roberto Lyseca.
But the response has come from Alexander Vinokourov, and look at that, he's going up to the wheel of Christophe Moreau. There's no reaction at all from Armstrong Ulrich. This could be a change that neither Armstrong or Ulrich were waiting for, because they're marking each other. There's a serious tactical game going on here.
Well, you're right, Paul, and what a wonderful Tour de France it is making for those people watching it on television or indeed on the roadside, because Vinokourov could be the spoiler here. 61 seconds behind, he could be the next yellow jersey. Armstrong cannot afford to monitor Ulrich for too long before he will have to do something.
He's already bridged the gap to Iban Mayo. This is looking like a completely different scenario right now, because Jan Ulrich does not have any teammates at all with him. Armstrong is just sitting there in the wheel of Ulrich saying, well, if you want to win the Tour, my mate, you better set the tempo and pull them back, because I'm not in a great form right now. But is it a game?
And by the way, let me remind you, if you're just watching, there is a breakaway a long way ahead on the road, but this is the race for the yellow jersey we are watching. Ahead is still Richard Virenque, Gilberto Simoni, Laurent Dufaux, Walter Benetton, and a handful of others. But here is the race for the next man to wear the maillot jaune. And you know, Vinokourov has said every day, I will attack and try to gain more seconds. And here he goes again.
Well, this is a great move by this man, 61. So there's Beltran. Beltran is sat up.
He was called back. He was called back by the team management to help Armstrong.
Absolutely and utterly. Amazing tactics that US Postal Service have adopted over these last couple of days. They've always had a man in the breakaway. That takes away the responsibility of chasing down the breakaway from the team, but it also gives them the ability to have that rider sit up when he's in a situation like this and wait for the team leader. This is a great tactical move, but is it going to be enough?
This is a game of bluff now. Ivan Basso, who was the best young rider last year, on the left of our picture. To him, the new best young rider, who's still young enough, is Denis Menchov. Armstrong is marking Ulrich. Ulrich is marking Armstrong, and this man is going for yellow.
He's walking away with it right now. He's got to make up 61 seconds at the end of the day if he wants to take over the yellow mantle in the stage and the result, because he is the one who's going out and chasing the lead of Armstrong. Armstrong today is in fact playing a very clever tactical card. He is forcing Ulrich to do the pacemaking. Ulrich wants to win the Tour de France right now. Armstrong saying, if you want to win it, you set the pace, mate.
Well, this is amazing now. Beltran is up now looking at Armstrong. He's asking the boss, what are the tactics? What do we do? Lance might be saying, just stay here and wait for Ulrich to move, because if he doesn't move, what is Lance going to do? He's going to say farewell to the yellow jersey today, that's for sure. But he's got to keep close enough to get it back in the few days ahead. We're into the last week of the Tour de France now. The Champs-Élysées one time seemed a long way away. Now it is literally next weekend, and there are huge celebrations for the arrival of the 100th year of the Tour de France, and Lance will be very disappointed if he doesn't arrive there in yellow. Well, these three are tempo. I emphasize these are not the leaders on the day, but they are the men who are fighting out the Tour leadership. Alexander Vinokourov is looking to no one for help. He won the stage into Gap when Loshiba Beloki was left lying in the melting tar and Lance was doing his bit of cross-country riding. But now he's trying to get a result here that will result in his first ever maillot jaune, and indeed the first ever for a rider from Kazakhstan. Well, this is a tremendous race. We will take a short break, but don't go far away. This race is again on a knife edge, and Vinokourov is the creator of that. We'll take a break on OLN. We're looking now at riders all the way down the mountain in all sorts of trouble. This is Moreau now, who made the original attack and now finds he can't hold the speed of the rider in pink. The original breakaway has gone to pieces completely, but we won't forget them. This is Tyler Hamilton back here, I think. It might have been Sastre. I didn't quite see his number. No, there is Hamilton up there with his shirt tails flapping too, so he's still up there. Tyler Hamilton, who says he still gets pain from that fractured collarbone, but he's still very much in the Tour de France. An incredible battle, and there's a huge gamble going on now between Lance Armstrong and Jan Ullrich. Still 5 kilometers to go.
5 kilometers to go for the three leaders. Gilberto Simoni has accelerated on a number of occasions, but he has not been able to put any gap between himself and Richard Virenque and Laurent Dufaux. It's 25 seconds their advantage over Walter Benetton, who is still surviving and doing a brilliant ride, but it's an awful long way back to the group of Jan Ullrich and Lance Armstrong. This is a complicated race right now because there are riders all over the slopes of this mountain. It's a slightly easier part as we go down to see how Vinokourov is handling this, but he's not getting any help at all here from Iban Mayo.
Well, Iban Mayo, Alexander Vinokourov, here comes the train led by Jan Ullrich, followed by Lance Armstrong, Ivan Basso, and the other rider just on the edge there, I think, is Zubeldia, and he has been something of a sensation as well for the Euskadel Euskadi. These boys here, this is Zubeldia, are being inspired by virtually a home crowd today. I think the whole of northern Spain has crossed over the mountains, just like Hannibal once did.
I think they're going to have to walk over tonight as well, because these roads are going to be blocked up for an awful long time. There's been an unbelievable number of spectators here at the Tour de France. Well, we can see Jan Ullrich doing most of the pacemaking, and there's Tyler Hamilton. I think he's now beginning to suffer. He's here with Denny Menchoff, the leader of the young rider competition, but you can't really take too much away for Tyler Hamilton. He's ridden for 15 days with a snapped collarbone, which is absolutely remarkable.
One by one, the riders are throwing in the towel, and still one by one, side by side, is Lance Armstrong and Jan Ullrich. They've just got Zubeldia and Ivan Basso. They won't help them. They'll try to jump away from them if they get half a chance, but they won't do any pacemaking. They've too much to gain and eventually nothing to lose. And all of the time, the last time check we got was 30 seconds to Vinokourov, and it might well be building just now.
Well, it really is an incredible battle here. Armstrong just sitting there, staring at the back wheel of Jan Ullrich, while these three carry on up the road, not even wondering about what's happening in the overall classification battle, because they're thinking about something else. They're thinking about individual victory. They're getting out of the trees right now as they get further up the mountain towards the summit of the Col de Peyresourde, and still the three are together. These are the men trying to steal a margin in the overall classification. There you can see the pink jersey of Alexander Vinokourov, the winner this year of Paris-Nice, and of course just before the start of the Tour de France, the winner of the Tour of Switzerland. He has to make time before the final individual time trial if he wants to win the Tour.
Well, at the moment there is a time check running. I can tell you that Vinokourov and Mayo are 4 minutes 40 now behind the three leaders. Moreau is riding 20 seconds behind them, but rather frustratingly, the time hasn't yet come for Ullrich. Here it comes. Keep talking, Paul. I'll tell you what it is. 5 minutes 20 seconds. So we are looking at still 30 seconds between Armstrong, Ullrich, and Vinokourov.
Not enough right now. He needs 61 seconds on the line if he's going to change the look of the overall classification. but what he has done is put into peril the second place of Jan Ullrich in the classification. Armstrong's face today, Phil, looks a lot more composed than it has done over the last few days. He doesn't look like a man in distress. He actually looks like a man enjoying his ride.
I honestly feel he feels he's back in the Tour de France, yet he's facing attacks from everybody who are trying him all of the time. This is Mayo, who's not helping Vinokourov at all, because Mayo, when he sees the top of this mountain, will attack this man and try to go for it alone. They are closing in on the three climbers. I'm not sure whether they can catch them.
It's going to be very difficult because those three climbers are not too far away from the summit of the climb, with the tempo being set by Gilberto Simoni on his shoulder in the polka dot jersey Vironk. They're still leading out in the middle of nowhere Walter Benetto by 25 seconds, but it just brings back to me something that Lance Armstrong said, Phil, a couple of days ago. Eddie Merckx called him up after his defeat in the individual time trial and said, Lance, don't worry, these are only battles. We've got to win the war. The war doesn't finish until we get to Paris.
He's in the war right now. This has been a tremendous Tour de France. What a great sporting occasion. How lucky are the organisers for such a wonderful tour in its 100th year. 5 kilometres to go, 3 miles still to climb for Alexander Vinokourov and Iban Mayo as they lock together. We go back down the road now, 40 seconds to Ullrich, Armstrong and Zubeldia. 40 seconds, that puts Vinokourov 21 seconds away from being the leader on the road.
The three leaders now going through the banner indicating 15 kilometres to go. That puts them around about 4 kilometres from the summit of the climb, and Vironk is the one nodding the top half of his body there, amazing the positions of these climbers, just trying to make sure they can survive on what they know is the big battle going on behind them. It will have been communicated to these three leaders that there is a showdown on the early slopes of the Col de Peyresourde. The position of this man is quite remarkable. He very much reminds me of a former teammate of mine, Robert Albon, the stick insect we used to call him. Whenever he felt that he was weakening, he got out of the saddle to dance on the pedals. Vinokourov, Phil, is looking a bit panic-stricken right now. He's looking over his shoulders and he may have gone too soon.
He's at maximum, there's no doubt about that, but he is trying desperately to build on that lead as we race through the grove of trees. He's looking, he's not asking for any help off Mayo. I think he knows he's not going to get it. Mayo's got no reason yet to work with Vinokourov. Just look at the face of Ullrich, keeping his tempo. There's no sign of panic there. Armstrong taking his privileged position of being the race leader. It's up to them to attack him, and have they certainly done that in this Tour de France. He is still, I think, in control, but it's on a knife edge.
It's on a knife edge, but I tell you what, if he wins this Tour de France, he will look back on this one as the one that he enjoyed the most, because he had adversaries in this bike race. The other ones he walked away with. Now they are throwing caution to the wind. Everybody wants to attack the man in the yellow jersey. This is a remarkable day.
These are the three leaders with 3 kilometres to go to the summit of the Col de Peyresourde. We won't miss the crossing of the Col, but what a race we have again in the Pyrenees. Come back to us on OLN. We're looking down at a group here on OLN who are trying now to save the yellow jersey in this group, because Alexander Vinokourov is now just 20 seconds off the race lead. We're looking at a banner here now, and as we come up towards it, I think it's 15 kilometres to go now. The clock is on that banner. Vinokourov has gone through in the company of Iban Mayo. This is the elite group, if you like. It was once about 80 strong. It's now down to 4 men, and 4 men who have not yet responded to a single attack. All of the tempo riding has been driven by Ullrich's team. Now Ullrich is left by himself. His teammates left down the mountain to struggle home. 15 kilometres to the finish. Ullrich separated from Armstrong by 15 seconds. Paul.
50 seconds is the gap now between Alexander Vinokourov and the group containing Jan Ullrich and Lance Armstrong. The man from Kazakhstan only needs another 11 seconds to be the new leader of the bike race by the end of this afternoon.
There, the top right-hand corner of our picture is the top of the Col de Peyresourde. It is a long, heartbreaking road, this, to end today's stage in the Tour de France. Vinokurov is just lightening the load there, squirting out a bit of the water. He'll keep the rest for his head as he will slowly try now to take the yellow jersey on the road. He's got to make a death-defying descent of this mountain, and then in the valley he's going to have to find himself some more wings, because he's got to win by 61 seconds. He's not in line for a win bonus today. We haven't forgotten, but up front, still up front, is Richard Virenque, Gilberto Simoni and Laurent Dufaux. They will steal the stage in the bonuses.
And a host of other riders scattered in between as well on the slopes here of the Col de Peyresourde. 50 seconds right now is the gap between Vinokurov in the pink jersey and the yellow jersey, Lance Armstrong and Ulrich and Ivan Basso. But it will be a death-defying descent for this man. Behind, don't ever forget that Lance Armstrong can go down hills very fast when he has to. We've seen him doing that in the past. And if it hadn't been for that crash of Yoshiba Baloki, I feel that Armstrong would have caught this man on the road down into gap, because once he started to open up the gas on that descent, he was closing down the advantage very rapidly.
But they're not doing that right now. They are still saying, I think the organisation's got pretty excited too now. They're doing just time checks between the two groups. They are saying it is still just 50 seconds between the two. It hasn't moved for about a half a kilometre now. There's the summit, right up the top. Follow the zigzags. It's a vicious climb, the Col de Peyresourde. This destroyed British hopes in 1963, I think it was, when Tom Simpson got the yellow jersey for a day and lost it in an individual time trial on this climb.
But it smiled on Great Britain in 1983 when Robert Miller came the other way over this climb and got himself the victory in Luchon. And there you can see this man is Alexander Bocharov. He was earlier on the slopes of this climb, but he was dropped. The Col de Peyresourde was a first mountain ever included in the Tour route, and its inclusion, by the way, was brought about by the invention of a wheel with cogs on both sides that the riders could change, but it took them a long time to change the wheel at the bottom and get going again.
And the then organiser, Henri de Grange, the founder of the Tour, didn't like it. He thought there was too much freewheeling allowed then in the Tour de France. All sounds very strange now. These boys would welcome the chance to freewheel now. They've been pressure on those pedals for a long time today. Armstrong has not gone to the front once today. His team too now are spread down the mountain. They're gone. Ivan Basso is profiting. He's just off our picture there in the white jersey from this move. He is having a great Tour de France himself. He sits currently in 7th place and I think might find himself up to 6th today, because Tyler Hamilton is slipping away.
This is a change in the books. Daniele Nardello is now being picked up by his teammate. Nardello, even though he's tired, will find a fraction of the energy that he can muster from somewhere just to set the pace. Even if it's only 500 metres, it will be a massive help to his teammate, who for the moment is only 11 seconds away from taking the yellow jersey on the road.
Well, Nardello didn't overdo the work rate in the breakaway, which got away after 12 kilometres. I think they've tried the same tactic as Lance Armstrong has these past 2 days, put a strong teammate in the front of the group. I thought they were shouting crash there for the moment, Paul, but what I was saying was they put 2 riders in the breakaway, and now when they've come back, they are able to still have the legs to help the riders. Now 1 kilometre to go. The flags of every nation fly. As we see there, the lines of Belgium, the Colombian flag, the Australian, the Basque flag of Spain. And down there somewhere in our picture, check it out, you might see the leaders of today's stage of the Tour de France. Well, as they keep coming up the climb now, this is towards the summit. Richard Virenque, I haven't worked it out, but he must be pretty near putting the top hat on the King of the Mountains this year. I don't think it's any point in Laurent Dufaux attacking him for the top. They'll concentrate now on the bottom. Another great day out in the high mountains for this rider, 119. And I'll tell you what, he'll thank his teammate too, Michael Rogers, for the way he helped him over the first 4 mountains. Now all Michael's got to do is struggle home and beat the time limit. This is an incredible crowd, Paul, on top of the Col de Peyresourde. And these riders now surely are going to fight out the finish.
Absolutely remarkable. The fans who have come up here to see the Battle of the Pyrenees. The group of Lance Armstrong is still holding on. It's 55 seconds right now, the difference between Alexander Vinokurov and Lance Armstrong.
6 seconds.
Vinokurov is not far away.
6 seconds, but he's making an awful big meal of it, isn't he? How much energy is he using today that he might need tomorrow on the climb of the Col de Tourmalet and the finish to Luz Ardidon? This Tour de France will demand a rest day the day after that.
This is a bit of chaos for him right now. They're catching riders who are caught in between the leading group of 3 who are inside the final kilometre of the climb right now, and riders who would drop from that early morning breakaway of 17 men. These are the 3 survivors of the breakaway. Gilberto Simoni will be enjoying his Tour de France today, but so too will the man in second position, Richard Virenque, be. Laurent Defoe is still holding on there. It's going to be a very dramatic descent because all of these riders can go downhill pretty fast.
Wait now for Richard Virenque to make his move. He's allowing Gilberto Simoni to go up through this massive crowd of people. It's hard for us now to show you where the riders are, so concentrate, because somehow Virenque is going to have to fight his way out of this melee of people. Most of these people, by the way, are Spanish. They're looking for the Spanish colours. They are not just Spanish, they are from the Basque country, as they always remind us, and the Basque cyclists are Iban Mayo and Zubeldia. The crowd parts here for the man who won the Tour of Italy so well this year by almost a double figure, Simoni. And this day, at last, he has put himself into a position to win a stage. He's not disgraced himself in the end in the Tour de France. He almost abandoned on the road to Marseille because he was disgusted at losing an hour and a half. Now Virenque comes up to the summit. Is he going to have a go, Paul, or allow him just to go over the line in first place?
I think he's pretty happy with the work that was done there by Gilberto Simoni, so he knew that second place was good enough for him to build up that massive advantage he's got in the overall classification. We're now looking here at Alexander Vinokourov with Iban Mayo sitting on his wheel. This is Steve Zampieri, who they've picked up and passed, but the crowd are going ballistic. Look at all the orange jerseys, the Basque flags. They are cheering for the man who's in second position there, Iban Mayo, but the man doing the job is the man in the pink jersey, Alexander Vinokourov. He is currently 6 seconds away from taking the lead away from Lance Armstrong, and of course the second position away from Jan Ullrich as well.
And this is Walter Benetton still riding to a 4th place. Incredible by this young French rider, and he descends like a stone. He'll get back to those 3 if he doesn't overdo it, and let's hope he doesn't do that. Come on, Walter, you can see the summit now. One big effort and you're over the top, and you're less than a minute behind, and you descend better than those 3 men in front of you. If he won, that would be unbelievable.
Absolutely, because I don't think his teammate Jean-René Bernardo ever got himself. This is Andrea Perron. He has done a great ride. This is brilliant. He was in the early breakaway as well, and he has managed to find his rhythm, and he too is in with a chance of pulling it all back together in the final 11.5 kilometres. Through the crowd, as the crowd opens there, this is the man who may well be the new yellow jersey at the end of the day. If they stopped the race at the top of the climb, he probably would be, but he's still got 11.5 kilometres downhill into the finish in Loudonvielle to keep hold of that 61-second advantage.
Armstrong is used now to losing his yellow jersey on the road and getting it back by the finishing line, and it could well be that way today. 1:41 to the leader over the top, who was Gilberto Simoni, who's not affecting the destiny in any way of Richard Virenque's King of the Mountains competition. He just made sure that Defoe was behind him, and that's given him an enormous lead overall. These are the riders now, and this is why the people love the Tour de France. They don't need barriers to hold the crowd back. They just go through a corridor of noise, and the crowd pull away, and the riders move on.
If it's 2 minutes and 42 seconds on the clock when this group gets to the summit of the climb, then we do have a new leader of the bike race at the moment with 11.5 kilometres to go. There is the clock ticking away on the left-hand side, 2:22, and these men are approaching the summit of the climb, and still Armstrong sits there, dances away. The time that we are looking for is 2:42, and as they come up to the line, it's Armstrong accelerating over the summit, and he's going to stop the clock, Phil, inside of 2:42. He's still the yellow jersey, but only by a fraction.
We're talking, I think, 5 seconds at the moment now. Which man is going to make the descent of his life here and lead the Tour de France by the end of this day? I wonder now. This is an incredible Tour de France. It will not lie down, and what a race we are witnessing again in the Pyrenees. We'll have to take another short break as the 3 leaders now go for home. Come back shortly on OLN.
Armstrong now taking up the pacemaking on the descent of the Col de Peyresourde, and you can see here that Jan Ullrich finally taking up position number 4.
Well, this is something special we're witnessing today. The storms that appeared to blow in blew out, at least as far as the weather was concerned. The storm is all down there on the highway today. These are the three men, the survivors of a breakaway of 17 that went after 12 kilometers. The three climbers conquered the mountains, and they're going to fight out the stage. They also carry the all-important small-time bonuses of no interest to these three, but of vital interest to Vinokourov, Lance Armstrong and Jan Ullrich, and they are chasing about 2 3/4 minutes behind.
These men should survive right now because we're facing inside of 11 kilometers to go to the finish, and they will be charging off this mountain at around about 45 miles an hour. This is the chase group of Vinokourov. He's chasing to try and get himself into the yellow jersey by the end of the day, and Armstrong getting some help here from Jan Ullrich himself.
This is Denis Menchov still coming up the other side with Didier Roux on his wheel a little bit further down. Nearly 5 minutes now has passed by since the leaders went over the top. This now is a desperate race for the finish. The challenges of the day are behind the riders. They've got to repair the time gaps, and it's going to be a desperate run for home. These are the three men who have shaped this day's racing for a great battle behind. The 35 seconds advantage that they have, by the way, is over Walter Benetto. He's already, Paul, knocked off 25 seconds on the descent.
He will be going absolutely ballistic. No, this is Simone. This is Simone, which is why...
Never look down when you're commentating.
They changed the colours of the jerseys before the Tour de France, Brioche Le Boulanger, because so often they were confused with Team Saeco of Gilberto Simone.
Now, this is the corner.
That's the corner right there when Jan Ullrich went off the road 2 years ago, 24 months ago, when he was trying to stay with Lance Armstrong on the descent, and it's Mayo taking all of the risks.
Well, we've got to see Jan Ullrich yet to go around that corner. Lance Armstrong saw him go and waited for him. He said, "You don't beat a man when he's down." Well, this is a very, very dicey corner. It is high speed, of course. These riders coming in at around 75. And don't forget, Jan Ullrich, when he went down that ditch, we feared for his life. But he came back up. Armstrong waited for him, and they continued. That was one of the most famous gestures of sportsmanship I think we can recall, Paul.
A dramatic moment in the sport of cycling. I remember on that day it was also Kevin Livingston who waited for his leader by the side of the road. Right now, the gap is down to just 40 seconds between Alexander Vinokourov and Lance Armstrong. The group of Ullrich Armstrong are really putting the hammer down on the descent. There you can see Ullrich. He did everything he could today to put Armstrong into difficulty, but Mr. Armstrong from Austin, Texas is still sitting pretty at the top of the leaderboard.
These two have got a ticking time bomb in their back pockets, and tomorrow on the Col de Tourmalet or the ride up to Les Ardennes, it is going to go off. They wanted an easier ride today, and despite the attack by Vinokourov, they have not reacted. Now they're chasing him down the mountain. They might well save the day. Lance may yet be starting tomorrow in yellow.
Well, these corners are treacherous on the descent of the Col de Peyresourde, but Armstrong is taking them to absolute perfection. He slowed down a fraction to come into that corner. He used all of the apex and accelerated right out to the left-hand side of the road, making sure that he did not lose too much impetus at all. 10 kilometers to go.
Well, that was for Vinokourov. That was 5 kilometers to go for Vinokourov as they come down the mountains. As we're now looking at the riders spread up on the descent here. This is the, I'm not sure, this is the second or the third group we're calling it on the road now.
This would be the third group on the road, right?
Zampieri.
Zampieri is in the group with Vinokourov. It's Iban Mayo who's really doing the work on the descent, trying to close the advantage. This is the yellow jersey group of Lance Armstrong. They are going down this hill absolutely ballistically. Ullrich is in second place, Ivan Basso is in third place, and right on the tail there is Aymar Zubeldia. They won't get any help at all from him because he's got a teammate off the front who is climbing slowly but surely up the overall classification. This now is the leading group of three. They're off the slopes of the mountain, but they've still got a pretty hard ride to get themselves to the finishing line in Loudonvielle.
It is still possible to chase down these riders, not so much these riders. They might get pretty close because it's a nasty approach to the finish. Steadily uphill, a wide, dead straight road down in the Luron Valley here. This is not over, this race, even this close to the finish. And you know, Lance Armstrong knows that Jan Ullrich cannot descend, so he's taking control of that descent himself, and the gap is holding. They could still bring back Alexander Vinokourov before they get to the finishing line, and then it would be just a big waste of energy for the rider from Kazakhstan.
Maybe that's Armstrong's plan at the end of the day. Allow all these guys to attack me. They'll use a lot of energy on the roads of the Tour de France with moves like this, especially the nervous energy which Vinokourov is actually using right now. This is the yellow jersey group. As we get to the straighter part of the course, even Jan Ullrich has come forward.
This is Heimar Zubeldia, who's come back. He must have got unhooked somewhere, but he's got back up to Lance Armstrong, who's accelerating. Jan just sits there, pumps those two big pistons he calls legs, and gets back on the wheel there of the yellow jersey. Heimar Zubeldia, something of a revelation of the Tour here, has got back on as the leaders are now approaching 3 kilometres to go.
I always think race organisers are very mean when they've had a long day in the saddle, 191 kilometres. They're inside 2 kilometres to go, and the organisation, just thank you very much, have thrown a nasty little climb in there to make the legs hurt that bit more.
But it could be a springboard for somebody like Simoni, but I think they've just about spent all their energy today. They have been in the lead since the 12th kilometre. That's a breakaway of 179 kilometres today.
This is the race for the yellow jersey right now. There is Iban Mayo getting help from Alexander Vinokourov. He was the man who attacked on the final kilometres of the Col de Peyresourde. They've got a man who has probably never seen the front in the big mountains before with them. So that's Steve Zampieri. This is the chase, though, from Jan Ullrich and Lance Armstrong, the two most talented men in the world of professional cycling. And Armstrong has got the power again.
I thought he was going to push it there. I thought he was going for the attack, but he's just to keep the pace high. They have been racing today for 5.5 hours as we speak. Another 5.5 hours of non-stop attacking and attacking. Just how much more can they take? 2 kilometres to go now for Vinokourov. Have you got Paul has started his watch now between him and Lance Armstrong. Vinokourov cannot ask help from anybody. It's down to his legs now. He's got to keep on racing. He'll finish last of those 3 when he gets to the line, but it's time that counts now. He's got to recover 61 seconds.
Well, the yellow jersey group is being led there by Armstrong and Ullrich. These are the 3 leaders. They're well inside the last 1.5 kilometres to go. Richard Virenque is so happy to be here. These guys now can play the tactical game. They know they're not going to get caught at all. This is the group. Armstrong's group is being led here by Ivan Basso. The clock is ticking by, but it's safe for Armstrong at the moment because I make it just 40 seconds up to Alexander Vinokourov.
40 seconds, he would still be in by 21 seconds, while Jan Ullrich...
Perron has caught the leaders. Andrea Perron has caught the leaders inside the final kilometre.
Well, that's an amazing result. Now, this could be the result of the day, as he's come from nowhere. Somehow, too, remember, he must have got mixed up with Walter Benito, and Benito hasn't come back, and we thought he was the descender. Perron was catching all the way up the Peyresourde. We've ran out of cameras. We didn't know where he was. We knew he was up there somewhere. Now, with fresh legs and adrenaline pumping, can he do it?
Well, he's not a great sprinter. He's got a slight advantage. Virenque is in the best position right now. He's in second place. Gilberto Simone's in third. Dufault is up into fourth. Simone adjusting his glasses. Perron is leading it out. He needs to look over his shoulder.
That's
he does not have a gap. He hasn't got the gap, and Virenque is sitting pretty.
That is a mistake. Andre Perron could have got a nice double here, because here goes Richard Virenque. I think Simone's going to get this. Simone's not a bad sprinter. Brakes are on. Very tight bend. Now they're lining up for the finish now. Richard Virenque, can he make it too? One in the Alps, but here comes now Simone. He wants this win. It's a matter of prestige as Gilberto Simone clearly, neck and neck now. Virenque still managed, and here comes Dufault. Dufault, no, on the line. He's got it, and boy, am I relieved. Gilberto Simone has got it. Walter Benito in the distance there just couldn't hold that man Perron on the chase. Well, Gilberto Simone has won the day, a big relief to Seiko and him, but now the clock really starts, because this is the race for the yellow jersey. And now we have Alexander Vinokourov. His face a picture here. He's not leading the race like he was when he won the staging gap. That doesn't matter. Time is what matters in the Tour de France, and the clock will really start when he hits the line. He's going to finish here in 6th place on the line, maybe 7th, maybe 8th. He'll be challenged now by Mayo. Mayo comes out, no, and he did it as well. So the clock has started, and now we wait.
Needs to be 1:42 on the line if Armstrong is going to lose the lead in the yellow jersey competition. But they are in the streets of Loudonville right now, and they are pumping to the line. It's amazing how this man has controlled the race so far since it left Paris. He's always been there, always been in the action. He's hardly made a mistake so far. The only mistake he's made is letting Jan Ullrich beat him by 1 minute and 36 seconds in the individual time trial. But look at that clock. It's Armstrong on the front. He too is not worried about about his position on the stage. He's worried about the clock as the clock ticks by. That's what is important for Armstrong. He's inside the final finishing straight right now, and he's kept it. It needs to be 1:42, and it stops at 1:23.
19 seconds, all unofficial, of course. He keeps that yellow jersey, but with Ulrich alongside him at 15 seconds, and Vinokurov at 19, I can't believe it. A blanket over all three as we go to the high climbs of the Pyrenees again tomorrow. Even Moreau here, Christophe Moreau, had a brilliant day in the mountains. We don't recognise this man as a serious mountaineer, but he had the tenacity to attack today, and he's not that far behind either. So he will be clearly now the best Frenchman in the race. A wonderful stage again. The hot news is that Lance Armstrong keeps his yellow jersey for a 7th day as Simone takes the honours. We'll take a break. Do rejoin us for the presentation here on OLN.
And so Saeco rider Gilberto Simoni shows that he is no quitter after a disappointing first half of the Tour. He comes on strong, winning stage 14. Let's go ahead and look at stage results brought to you by Pacific Life. Gilberto Simoni on top. He's followed by Defoe, Richard Varenk, Andrea Perron, and Walter Beneteau. Alexander Vinokurov coming in 6th. He's followed by Ivan Mayo, Steve Zampiera, Aymar Zubeldia, and Ivan Basso. And let's go ahead and see. Here is Gilberto Simoni taking the stage win, getting his bag of goodies.
Absolutely fabulous effort put in by Gilberto Simoni, the winner of the Giro earlier this year, coming up huge with a stage win in the Tour.
All right, not much change in the overall general classification. Lance Armstrong still in yellow on top. He's followed by Jan Ullrich, only 15 seconds behind. Alexander Vinokurov takes some time off. He's only 18 seconds behind now. Aymar Zubeldia, Ivan Mayo. American Tyler Hamilton falls to 7th overall. Francisco Mancebo, Christophe Moreau, and Carlos Sastre rounds out the top 10. And the man in yellow, Lance Armstrong, he's getting comfortable up there taking that yellow jersey.
He looks great in the yellow jersey, you have to admit. It'd be strange to see him out of it at this point after 4 wins in the Tour already. Always in yellow in the mountains, but this is the closest lead he's ever had after so much climbing. Only 15 seconds over Jan Ullrich and only 18 seconds over Alexander Vinokurov.
If you add it all up, how many kisses has he got because of that yellow jersey?
He's got a lot.
He's got a lot. Our own Frankie Andreo is standing by now with Lance Armstrong.
Lance, today it seemed like you stuck with Ullrich like glue. Is he the only rider you're concerned with in this Tour?
Yeah.
Plain and simple, huh?
Plain and simple.
Are you happy with going in with only 15 seconds right now, and will you try something tomorrow to be able to extend that lead on Jan?
Well, he's strong, you know, so you have to wait until you see a weakness or a weak moment, and you know, so far I haven't seen that. And it seems like today I was a little better than yesterday, and just trying to come up a little bit from that time trial. And so if I'm better tomorrow, then, you know, Luz Ardennes, tough climb, and with the Tourmalet before, you know, you would like to have, based on the first time trial, I think I'd like to have more than 15 seconds.
On the last climb, depending if Jan is feeling good or not feeling good, are you going to try to attack no matter what, just to test him?
No, I'll have to see how I feel.
Assuming you're feeling good.
If I feel good, I would probably attack. But, you know, if I'm on the limit, I'm not going to attack.
All right, thanks a lot, Lance.
Thanks.
And Lance Armstrong not giving away any of his strategy for tomorrow.
Well, when Lance Armstrong says he needs time on Jan Ullrich, he only has 15 seconds. That's a pretty good indication that if he's capable, he's going to launch some serious attacks. I have a feeling he has a couple of nuclear warheads pointed straight at Team Bianchi and Jan Ullrich's cranium.
All right, let's go ahead and look at tomorrow's stage, stage 15. Still in the Pyrenees, Bob.
Still in the Pyrenees, another hard day in the mountains, perhaps the hardest day of this Tour de France, 159.5 kilometers, starting in Bagnères de Bigorre and going to Luz Ardennes. Kind of flat to begin the stage. I think we'll see some breakaways, try to get away from the field, although it's not a very long stage. Some riders are going to get up the road, especially if they're not threats on the GC, as we've seen so far each day in the Tour since they've gone into the mountains. First climb of the day is the Col d'Espagne, one of the historical climbs in the Tour de France. Very hard climb. That's followed directly by a monster, a giant, very hard climb, the Tourmalet. We used to call it Tore My Legs Off. And up to Luz Ardennes for the finish for a very, very difficult stage.
All right, and don't forget that we are back live tomorrow with a special start time at 8 a.m. You get 1 extra hour of live coverage. Then you can also join us for our primetime coverage. That begins at 8 p.m. with our pre-race show. And I don't know if you can hear right now, but yes, the rain is coming down. This is the first rain we have had of the 2003 Tour. Hopefully it will cool down temperatures for tomorrow's stage. And don't forget, you can also check our website for any updates and information. That is olntv.com. So that's going to do it for our entire OLN TV crew here in France. We say goodnight, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.